Hi, I'm Marc with Squid Ink. In today's video, we're going to discuss preventative maintenance for our JetStream PX hard pigmented CIJ printer. Okay, you guys might be wondering when is the proper time to perform preventative maintenance on this machine. There are two different scenarios. One is when we reach the 3,000 hours that are programmed into the main filter. So when we reach that filter life or that filter life expires, we want to go ahead and do a flush and filter change, or I would recommend biannually, every 6 months. So whichever comes first, the 3,000 hours or 6 months. If we want to be able to identify our filter life or how much time we have left, I'll show you how to do that. So we'll take a look in the programming here. We want to check our filter life. If the machine is not actively jetting, what we're going to do is just click exit auto circulate mode really quick. If the machine is jetting, we can actually access this information through the settings without changing anything. So we're going to go to our settings page, bottom left hand corner, and ink system. And what you'll see in the bottom right hand corner of the screen, we'll see filter service time. Now, this machine has very recently had a filter change already, but you can see here we've got just over 2,700 hours remaining on the filter kit, okay? So that'll continue to count down as the machine is jetting. When we get within 400 hours of zero, you're gonna get a reminder saying you might wanna schedule preventative maintenance. The closer we get to zero, the frequency of those reminders will increase. At zero or beyond, you will always be reminded, hey, you should schedule preventative maintenance for this printer, okay? The information above that ink cycling time is just the total running time on the printer. Okay, before we get started, there are a few things that we need to perform preventative maintenance on this printer. First thing we're going to look at here is the full filter kit for the system. This filter kit is specific to the JetStream PX. The part number is 2007374. This is a little bit different than the standard JetStream filter kit. You'll see we've got an extra inline filter. We're also bringing in a buffer. So in total, what we have is a main filter, a buffer that we're going to replace, 4 inline filters. So again, a little bit different than what you're used to with the standard system. We've got an extra 100 micron inline filter that we'll be replacing on the viscometer circuit. We have a 50 micron gutter filter and 2 20 micron inline filters for our ink and makeup going out to the head. So we need to have this kit ready and on hand before we do a PM on this printer. We need a full quart of cleaner. Okay, so we've got, for this particular ink that we're running, we've got MEK that we're gonna be flushing the system with. So you do need a full bottle of cleaner. To be clear, it will be beneficial to have a Phillips screwdriver, and just the small side cutters or even a pliers will be helpful, especially when we're taking the buffer out. We've got the funnel that comes with every system. This will be useful when we're filling up the ink tank with cleaner when we're flushing the system out. We've got a waste bottle. You're going to want about a quart or liter bottle to facilitate all the waste fluids that'll be coming out of the system. And we've got some external cleaner. This matches the makeup that we're flushing the system with. This will come in handy if we're just doing some general cleaning around the chassis or even the print head as the system is being flushed out. And we've got some towels just in case we've got to wipe up any residual fluids. So this is kind of what you want to have ready when we start working on the system, again, for preventative maintenance. Before we can start with preventative maintenance on the printer, we need to make sure it is not jetting. So what you should see on the display is this pop-up. Right now it's in auto circulation mode. If the printer is jetting, we would just hit the stop jetting key, let it cycle off so we get to this point. Okay, so we're gonna go into the back of the printer first, and we're gonna locate the drain line for this system. So we can leave it powered on right now. We're just gonna spin the printer around. We have to take off that back panel. There are 4 Phillips screws that we're going to have to remove in order to do that. We have the back of the printer open, so we've got this panel off and out of the way, and all we're looking for in the back of the machine is the drain line. Now, this is the drain line for the ink tank of the printer. So when we go back here, what we're looking for is, it will be labeled. You're going to look for a tag that is labeled ink drainage pipe, okay? And you'll see this is actually on a tube that's connected to an inline filter. This is normally our ink that would be going out to the printhead in this line. What we're going to do is just disconnect this filter on the side that has that tag. So we'll disconnect here. This will just thread off, and we're going to place this tube into our waste collector bottle. And you'll see what we've done with this quart bottle. We've just kind of notched out the cap, so this is hands-free. It'll hold that tubing in place with that compression fitting from the filter. So we just want to get this situated. Now we're going to go back to the display and we will initiate the draining process of the preventative maintenance feature. So we have our waste collector bottle hooked up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to exit the auto circulate mode. So all we have to do is hit this button. It's going to stop the auto circulation of the system. Now we're going to go to the settings page. We're going to go to maintenance, and we're going to use cleaning for long-term shutdown. And you'll notice the way this is labeled, cleaning for long-term shutdown. It could be used if we're going to store the machine for a long time. It's the exact same process that we're going to use also just for preventative maintenance. It's the same cleaning cycle. So we're going to go ahead and click this. It's going to verify that that's what we want to do. We'll say yes. It's now prompting us to connect that drainage bottle. We've done that in advance. This is just a reminder to do it in case you forgot. So we've got our drainage bottle hooked up. When we click start, it's going to start pumping out our ink reservoir or ink tank in the system. Okay, so we're going to start filling up that waste collector with the remaining fluids in that tank. So if we click start, okay, so you'll see we're filling up our waste bottle. We'll let this run. You can also open the front door of the printer, and we can look at the level of that ink tank. So instead of waiting for the machine to run through the full 100% or time available for this process, when we do see that ink tank go empty, it is okay to just click stop at that time. So again, we can keep an eye on our ink tank here, and you'll notice it's very easy to see where the level of fluids is. So if we see this get all the way down to the bottom and it goes empty on the display, it's perfectly okay to click stop instead of just leaving the machine run through the full 100%. Either way is really fine, but this will speed up the process if we keep an eye on it. It doesn't take long, maybe a couple minutes at most. So again, keep an eye on the level. We'll click stop and we'll continue on with the process. Okay, you'll see we've gotten down to the bottom of our ink tank. I'll show you a quick trick if we want to get rid of some of just the residual ink down here. There's just a teeny bit left. You can slide the ink tank forward a little and just tip it, and you'll see that that'll help claim some of that remaining fluid. You're not going to get everything, but you'll get 9% of what's in here. So you can just kind of tip that around a little bit, put it back. You'll see there's just a very small amount of ink left, but that's it. So when we get to this point, we're going to hit stop on the display, and we are done draining the tank. So the next thing we need to do before we proceed is reconnect that drain line in the back of the cabinet. Okay, so we're just reconnecting this compression fitting on the filter. And this just needs to be hand tight, so get it nice and snug. We've got that reconnected. Now we can continue on with the cleaning process. Okay, so we've stopped draining. We're going to click continue on the display. And the next thing we're being asked to do is add diluent or makeup. And we're adding that to our empty ink tank. Okay, so what we need to do now, we're going to slide the ink tank out a little bit. We're going to remove the cap to the tank. We're going to put our funnel in the tank, and then we will be able to pour in our makeup or cleaner. Now we don't need to fill the tank all the way to the maximum level. You can fill it about halfway is perfectly acceptable. When we're done doing that, we'll remove the funnel, put the cap back on, and then we will continue with the screen prompts. Okay, so our tank, ink tank is filled with makeup. We're going to go ahead and just slide that back in. Again, I've put the cap back on, so that's ready to go. The next thing we're going to do on our display is just click OK. And what the printer is going to do is just start cleaning itself on its own. So our pressure pump is firing up. We're sending makeup out through the hydraulic manifold. We'll send makeup out through the ink circuit and the printhead. This is all automatic. Printer's doing it on its own. The one thing we will do periodically throughout this process is maybe just rinse the printhead off. We'll show you how to do that. One thing to point out here, this cleaning process is two cycles. So we're basically going to do this 2 times, filling the tank, cleaning the system, draining it, filling the tank again, cleaning the system, draining it one last time before we do the filters. Each of those cycles will take about 30 minutes apiece. So this is a much more thorough cleaning process than one of our standard CIJ printers, again, due to the nature of the inks that this machine manages. So it does take some time, just so you're aware, again, about 30 minutes for each cycle. Okay, one thing we can do while the printer is cleaning itself, we can take the printhead out of the sleeve and put it over a tray or a waste collector, and it's okay to just rinse the printhead off with cleaner. So this is actually actively cleaning. You'll see we actually have a jet here that is the makeup coming from our ink tank. What we can do is, while it's doing this, just kind of rinse the head off if there's any residual ink buildup. Doesn't take much. So again, that's just something you can do to help clean the head while it's running this internal cleaning process. It's even okay, not an issue at all if you hit the gutter with some cleaner. It's going to pull that in when it's jetting, and a little bit of extra cleaner going back into the ink tank is perfectly fine. Okay, at the end of that cleaning cycle, we're going to get a pop-up that says, please connect the drainage bottle. So we're ready to pump out the fluids that are in the ink tank again. So this is kind of a mixture of that makeup cleaner and residual ink that was in the manifold. We're going to get that out, and then we'll be doing another cleaning cycle. So we're going to spin the printer around, hook the drainage line back up, pump out the tank, and go from there. Our drainage bottle is hooked up, so now we're going to click start, and we're going to empty out that ink tank. So this is the same process as we did when we initially drained the printer. We can keep an eye on the level of our ink tank. When we get down to the bottom, we can kind of tip this around a little bit, get the residual fluids out. When that's empty, we'll go ahead and click stop. We'll reconnect our drainage line and start the second cleaning cycle. So we've gotten down to the bottom of the ink tank when we're draining. So again, you can kind of slide this out, tip it around a little bit. That'll help draw out most of the residual fluid in here. So you'll see this is really quite empty at this time. So when you get to this point, we're going to go back up to the display and click stop. And then we're going to go to the back of the machine and reconnect that drainage line. We're reconnecting this drainage line back to this inline filter. Again, we just want this hand tight. Now we're going back to the front of the machine. Okay, so our drainage line is reconnected in the back of the printer. So we're back in the front of the machine. We're going to click continue. So we've drained out the ink tank, and it's going to tell us we're starting the second cleaning cycle. So we're basically doing the exact same thing one more time. So we'll click OK, and we're now being prompted to add dilutant to the tank for our makeup. So what we would do is fill this up with cleaner again. We'd click OK. The printer is going to run a second cleaning process, again another 30-minute cleaning cycle. At the end of that, it will ask us to drain the tank one more time, and that will conclude the automatic cleaning process of the machine. Once we've done that, the next step is replacing the filters in the printer. Okay, so we've concluded our second cleaning cycle on the printer. So again, it's the exact same thing you guys saw with the first cycle. So we've flushed the machine out again, we've drained the ink tank again. So the printer's been flushed out. Now, again, we're doing preventative maintenance. So the next step is replacing the filters. So we've got 4 inline filters, a main filter, and also the buffer that we need to swap out in the machine. When we're gonna do that, what we need to do first is actually turn off power to the printer. The reason we do that is we don't want someone accidentally starting the machine up, worst case scenario, while we are working on it. So we're gonna go to the back of the printer, turn power off, and then start working on the filters. Here's our power switch right here. We're gonna push that in, and you'll see now that the machine is off. So we've got our machine powered off. It's also good practice in a scenario like this where we're taking filters out, especially the main filter off the manifold, to unplug the printer too. Again, that's the safest way to do this. So we'll unplug the printer from the wall outlet quick, and then we'll start working on the machine. Okay, so again, our machine is powered off, it's unplugged. We're at the back of the printer. The first thing we're gonna do is replace the main filter. Now, it's really easy to access in the back of the machine. Very similar from a footprint standpoint, identical to the main filter in our other CIJ printers. The filter elements themselves are different, so this is a different filter internally, but same principle as the other units. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take out all 12 of these screws first to get this off the manifold. You do need to pay attention to the screws and keep them separate. The 2 screws in the center on both sides, this is a dual chamber filter, so on each side you've got these center screws. They are a different size, so just be careful when you're taking these out. Keep track of which screw is which. We are going to reuse these screws on the new filter. That's the only thing we're reusing. One last comment I'll make. Again, it is easy to get at this, but if you want more access to the filter, the entire hydraulic system is sitting on a little drawer here. There's one screw that holds that in place. So if we take this out, we can slide the assembly out a little bit to make it even easier to work on this. So it's really up to you and what you're comfortable with. One thing to be mindful of when you're putting in the new main filter, there are 4 O-rings that come with the filter. Make sure that these are installed prior to putting the filter in or putting the screws in even to bolt this up to the manifold. If by chance you forget to put these on or one of these on, there's a good chance that you will have leakage between the manifold and the filter. So I can't stress enough, make sure you've got your O-rings on before you proceed. You guys might also be wondering what this chip is in the filter. This is the filter life chip here. So when we put this filter back in, or when we install this filter, I'm sorry, there is a reader on the manifold that'll see this chip. It's automatically going to update the filter life in the printer. So actually a really nice feature. You don't need to do any programming in the machine. This is automatically going to do it for you. So that'll reset that filter life back to 3,000 hours. So we've got a filter here with the O-rings and screws installed. Okay, and all you really have to do is navigate these couple of wires here. You can lift them up. You can slide your filter in underneath. We're going to go ahead and get this lined up with the manifold here, and then we're going to tighten all the screws back down. Okay, so we've got our main filter replaced. Now we're going to move on to the inline filters. I do recommend at this time, if you haven't already, take the screw out that holds the manifold tray and manifold in place. We are going to want to slide this forward to get at our viscometer inline filter. That's going to be tucked kind of on the other side of the manifold. Really straightforward. Again, we've got this screw removed. We're going to slide the manifold out, and what you're going to see when we slide this out is one of the inline filters kind of tucked back here, okay? This is the 100 micron inline filter. These are labeled. The micron size is etched into the filter. Now, from this perspective, it's upside down, but it does say 100 on here. There's also an arrow for directional flow. So we do want to be mindful of both of those things when we go to our filter kit to replace this. We need the 100 micron inline filter, and we need to make sure we put it in the same direction that this one currently sits. So to replace these, it's really straightforward. You've got a compression fitting on each side. You just unscrew these, put the new filter in. It is actually okay to reuse these fittings if you'd like. That way you can't make a mistake when you put the new filter in. We could put our new filter in now. We know it's going to be in the right direction matching this one. Remove the other filter and screw this back together. That's it. Once we get that inline filter for the viscometer replaced, so that was the 100 micron filter, we're done on this side of the machine, so we can actually slide our manifold back in place. We'll put this screw back in, and that'll be set. After that, we're going to move on to our 3 remaining inline filters on this side of the machine. So our remaining 3 filters, again, very straightforward as to how to replace these, same as what you just saw with the viscometer filter. You just need to be mindful, again, of the filter size or the micron size and the direction of flow. So we've got a 50 micron filter for our gutter line. So this will have a 50 etched in it, and we've got our directional flow. This is also on our red striped line. So this matches the color scheme of our other printers. The red striped line is our vacuum return or gutter line. So we've got our 50 micron filter here that we need to replace. We have 2 20 micron filters that we have to replace. One is for the ink line going out to the head. One is for the makeup line going out to the head. The ink line has a green stripe on it. The makeup line, we can see this here, has a blue stripe on it. So easy to identify which one is which. And again, these are both the same filter size, 20 micron. So again, pay attention to that micron size and the directional flow. Replace these, and that is it for the back of the machine and for your filter set back here. All right, we've got our main filter and our 4 inline filters replaced in the back of the printer. We're going to leave that back panel off for now. That way when we commission the printer, we can just make sure that there are no leaks or anything like that. We are now coming to the front of the machine, so we'll open the front door. The last thing we're going to do is we will replace the buffer on this unit, okay? So that is a part of that filter kit we mentioned earlier. We'll put the part number again for that kit on the bottom of the screen here. So what we will do with this, it sits on a metal plate in the front of the printer. We're going to dismount that. We'll be able to get the buffer off that plate, and then we'll show you how to swap it out. So what we're going to do here, there are 2 screws that hold this plate in place. We are going to remove one of them completely. The other, we just need to loosen up a bit. You'll see that these are notched on each side, so the plate will just slide off the other screw. So again, we're going to take this one out. And we'll just loosen the other one. Okay. So we have our buffer plate and buffer removed from the system. Now the last thing we need to do before we swap this out is get the plate off of the buffer. So there are just 2 small Phillips screws that hold that in place. We are going to remove these to get the plate off, and then we'll discuss disconnecting the hydraulic lines to the buffer itself. We've got our buffer removed from the plate, so now we're going to need to disconnect both of these hydraulic lines going to the buffer. This is where side cutters will come in handy, just to kind of get this tubing worked off of the barb fittings on the buffer. So first you'll see we've got these little cover fittings slid on here. So you can take your side cutter and just kind of pry those up. They'll slide up. And now we've got access to our tubing on the barb fittings. So again, the side cutter comes in handy here. We can work this around the base and try to slide this tubing up. There's a lot of excess tubing here, so if you do chew these up a little bit, it's okay. We can just trim that when we install the new buffer. You do not need to keep track of which tube goes where. Okay, it doesn't matter. So we'll just disconnect both of these, connect our new buffer, and go from there. I am going to trim these tubes up a little bit. Again, when I was working these off the buffer, chewed them up a little bit. So again, plenty of tubing here. We're going to trim just a little bit off the end. And we'll install our new buffer. Okay, so again, we're going to reconnect the tubes. You actually shouldn't need to flare these out much. They should fit back over these barb fittings fairly easily. So you're just going to push that all the way down. And we're going to slide those fittings back on. So our buffer is reconnected. We're just going to put that mounting plate back on the bottom and remount this inside the chassis. We're done with the buffer. Okay, so our filter kit has been completely replaced. So again, our main filter, 4 inline filters, and buffer have all been swapped out. I'm going to turn the machine back on. So we've reached the point now, the printer's flushed, we've got new filters. We would be ready to recommission it and put it back into service, okay? If you're not sure what goes into commissioning the printer, make sure you watch our video dedicated to commissioning a JetStream PX machine. Okay, the last thing we're going to do here, we've already discussed your reference for recommissioning the printer after we've completed the preventive maintenance process. Is we did discuss how we've left the back panel off the machine. So this is really the only difference in commissioning from a brand new unit to a unit we did preventative maintenance on, is we just want to check and make sure when we start the printer up that we don't have any leaks from our inline filters, main filter, or we can check our buffer too on the front. Since we've replaced all those items before we put the panel back on, just check everything, make sure you don't have any leaks, button it up, and we're good to go. That concludes our video on preventative maintenance for the JetStream PX printer. If you'd like to see more videos on this printer or any of our other products, please head to YouTube and search Squid Ink Manufacturing. You'll find a bunch of great videos on all of our product lines. Also, don't hesitate to head over to squidink.com for even more information on our entire product line. Thank you.